Welcome back to Intro to Python, and today we are going to discuss lists, how to store things in them, logical operators, Boolean expressions, and input-output functions. So first off, let's start with lists. What are they? Well, when you want to store a lot of data, or maybe the order of data which you want to store is important, you may need to use these. A list can hold different items together and keep them in order. Python usually gives each item a number that shows its position in the list. So you can call on a specific item inside a list. You can change the items in the list at any time by editing it. Okay, so here I am in the shell window, and I'm going to demonstrate to you what this really looks like. So right here in front of me, I have a list of hockey players and soccer players, and we're going to sort them into different lists. Let's start with the hockey players I have. So we could store each name and then put it next to a variable, which is what I'm going to do right now. So we could do this. One might go about doing this. Right? Okay. And if I say print hockey player 1, it will print Crosby, right? So I could just keep going and storing all of my hockey players in different variables. And do McDavid now. And I'm going to end with King. I could do that. Or I could store them all in a list. I had to type out 4 different lines of code. That took a while. Instead, I could just store them all in a list so I can call on each of them easier. So let's name my list hockey players. That's what my variable is going to be. Hockey players. So we're storing our list inside a variable. And lists always start with square brackets. And then we're going to input our, put our strings inside of that. So I'm going to put it in the order that I want it to be in, which is from Crosby, McDavid, Gretzky, and then King. And then I'm going to end it with square bracket as well. If I want to call on one particular item in this list, I can type hockey players, and then I'm going to put square brackets, and then inside those square brackets, I'm going to put whichever number I want. And remember, Python always starts counting from 0, especially in lists specifically. So if I want Crosby, which is my first item in the list, I have to say 0. So instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, Crosby, David, McGretzky, and Kane would be 0, 1, 2, 3. And here it is, Crosby. Now let's do another example with my soccer players. So, soccer players. Remember the square brackets. Now instead of doing the first one, how about let's do the last, okay? Soccer players. Last one in this case would be 3 because Python starts counting at 0. Really? Right. So that's kind of how we use lists in Python, and this is really useful to store different items in a particular order inside a list, so for easier access, instead of storing them all in individual variables, which can be hard. Next, let's talk about Boolean expressions. Every day, we usually make decisions about what to do next based on the answers to questions we ask ourselves. Computers can also make decisions by asking questions to the user. So this introduces us to Boolean values. So the answers to the questions computer asks usually only have 2 possible values, true or false. Python usually calls these 2 values Boolean values, and they must always start with a capital letter. You can store a Boolean value inside a variable, which is useful for when you write programs and lines of code. So, logical operators are symbols that tell the computer to make comparisons. Programmers usually use them in. Let's try another example. If I say age equals 10, I'm assigning it to 10. I'm saying age equals 10. I want age to equal 10. Then now if I say if age equals 10, right now I'm telling Python that if age equals 10, I want Python to print old is a lot. And since I equated age to 10, Python printed 10 years old is a lot. See, if I were to change the value of age to 11, then if I were to say if age equals 10, it wouldn't work because I assigned age to 11, not 10. So double equal signs kind of check Python if that variable is equal to what I'm saying it is, but a single equal sign assigns that value to a variable. There are other logical operators too. Aside from the double equal sign, there's also the exclamation mark and an equal sign, a less than symbol, and a greater than symbol. We're going to do an exercise to use these different logical operators so we can further understand what they mean. Let's say I have a bunch of giraffes and zebras. I want to assign 6 to my variable giraffes because I have 6 giraffes, and then I only have 3 zebras. So zebras equals 3. I'm using a single equal sign because I'm assigning my value to a variable. Now, if I want to make comparisons to between my variables, I can say I know that 3 is less than 6. So if I want Python to print true, I can ask if zebras is less giraffes. True, because 3 is less than 6. Now what if I said giraffes greater than zebras? It would also be true, because 6 is greater than 3. What if I said something that wasn't true? What if I asked Python if they were equal to each other? it would print false because they're not equal to each other. That's why I use the double equal sign to check if both of the variables, both of the values are equal to each other. I can also do multiple comparisons by using parentheses and the word and. So if I want to, So if I want to say or ask Python if equal to, let's say 7, because we know it's not equal to 7, and zebras equal to 3, what do you think it would print? Because we know that giraffes isn't equal to 7, it's equal to 6, but zebras is equal to 3. So would it print true or false? It would be false because I used the word and in between. Both values have to be true for it to say true. If one of them is false, it will print false. The statement is false. What if we use the word or in between? We can use and or. So if I said giraffe equals say 3, or zebras equal to 3. It said true because zebras is equal to 3, but giraffes isn't equal to 3. And I use the word or, so only one of them has to be true. So if you use and, both of them have to be true, but for or, only one of them has to be true. What if I said zebras exclamation mark equals giraffes? Exclamation mark equals basically means not equal to. It's the opposite of equal to. And this is true because they're not equal to each other. Yeah, and we went through all of the logical operators. Now we know how to assign variables and compare them to each other. But how do we assign a value that the user gives us? We can do that by using input and output functions. So right now, let's open a new file. And let's give this file a name. We'll call it roller coaster for now. You'll see why. Or any name you want. Okay. So if I wanted to get a value from the user and ask the user a question, I would have to use the function input and output when I want to give the user an answer. So I want to write a function that can tell me if the user is tall enough to ride a roller coaster. So for that, we need to ask our user a question. How tall are you? User will give us a value, like 6 foot, and this will tell us if they're tall enough to ride the roller coaster. So we'll start with height equals input. How tall are you? So we want our program to ask the user how tall they are, and they will respond. Now we have to use something else called an if-else statement, which is really important when we ask the user questions because we need to use the words if and else, depending on how tall they are. And we need to give them different answers because of it, because if they're tall enough for the roller coaster, yes, they can ride it, but if they're not tall enough, they can't ride it. So there's 2 different answers that we would have to, that we could give the user in this case. And we need to make sure that our program knows which one to give in different cases. So we're going to use the word if, which we used in our shell window. So if height is, let's say, taller than 4 feet, because I feel like that's usually the minimum for roller coasters. If height is, let's say, greater than 4, and we always need to remember our colon at the end, otherwise Python will give us an error. And after that, Python usually, if you click enter, Python usually automatically does an indentation, but we always indent 4 spaces after an if statement, or an else, or if, or elif. So if that's true, we want our program to print yay, you can ride the roller coaster. Right. But what if they're not taller than 4 feet? What if they're still 3 feet? What if they're a baby? You never know. So we always want to give a different answer. So else as in if they're not taller than 4 feet. If they print something other than that, print Another thing I should mention is that instead of input, we should put int, short for integer, then parentheses, then inside that we have to put our input function. And the reason we're doing this is because we want our answer to be a number, a numerical value, not a string. Input is used if we want our answer to be a string, but if your answer is a number and you're going to use logical operators with it, you need to put the input, otherwise Python will give you an error. Okay, so over here, how tall are you? Okay, now let's put 5. And it works. Let's run it again. And put in a different value. How tall are you? Let's put 2 this time. And there, we did it. We built a simple function, or a simple program, that can see whether the user can ride a roller coaster or not. Let's try a different one. New file. Let's call this one weather. .py, save. Okay, this one's going to be of a similar format but with different variable names because we want them to be relevant to our program. So we want to write a function, or a program. Sorry, I don't know why I keep saying function. It's probably because we're using them. But we want to write a program that can see whether see what weather it is today, and print a kind of reminder note. So if, for example, if we ask our user, what's the forecast for today? And if the user replies with rain, then we can say, remember to bring your umbrella. Or if it's snow, remember your winter hat. If it's sunny, remember your sunglasses. Something like that. So this time our input doesn't have to be a number. It's not a number. Rain, snow, sun, wind, none of those are numbers. They're words, so it would be a string. So we don't have to use int and then input. We could just use input. we ask our user a question. And we also want to give it specific answers too, because it would be very useful for us so they know which words to put inside. So we have a corresponding option for them. So maybe rain, snow, and sunshine. I think that sounds good. Let's put these in brackets or parentheses. Next, we need our first condition. And this time we have three, so we're not just going to use an if and an else, but we're also going to use something called an elif, which is in between. I'll show you what it looks like. So we have if whether, and we're going to use the double equal sign because we want to check if it's equal to. So if weather equals rain, colon, and then Python automatically indents for us, we're going to say print remember to bring your umbrella and rain boots with you. And our next one would be elif. Cover double equal sign snow print say remember to wear your and gloves, your winter hat and gloves. Next, or last, if it's else, and for else we don't have a condition or anything, we just put the colon. We're going to say print. Our final option would be sunshine, right? So you remember to bring your sunglasses. Let's add exclamation marks. Those are fun. Okay, I think this looks pretty good. Let's run it, see what it does. I'm going to put rain.